right, welcome back to Cognitive Psychology. This is week 15, class number 2, and today we're going to continue our look at chapter 13, Judgment, Decisions, and Reasoning. So we are going to now conclude our look at reasoning. We finished that last time with the Wason selection task. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at judgment and decisions and begin our look at those two areas of cognition. And we are going to dive right in, take a look at judgments and decisions now. And we're going to introduce the idea of judgments by taking a look at a very important concept which will affect the way that you think, the way that you process the world, and importantly, the way that we all process the world that might keep us from seeing the truth, and that is confirmation bias. So we're going to reflect on confirmation bias. We're going to go over the results of what is now going to be treated as a sort of separate experiment, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But we're going to go over the confirmation bias, and then we're going to take a look at normative or prescriptive versus descriptive decision making. And we're going to analyze that a little bit by going through some examples, going through some challenges. The first one being the pirate game. And then the second one we're going to take a look at is the dollar auction, and end our look today at a real world application where decisions and judgments kind of went off the rails because of the very normal, very regular processes that occur in our mind. So let's jump in with a look at confirmation bias. So confirmation bias is going to come into the realm of judgments. How do you judge information? How do you judge whether or not you're going to believe something or you're not going to believe something? So confirmation bias is a phenomenon that psychologists have identified, and it is our natural tendency. It's our instinct. It's our impulse to search for and interpret information in a way that confirms our own beliefs. So we tend to want to confirm our own beliefs. So we will search out information that confirms our own beliefs. And when we're given the same piece of information as somebody else, we will oftentimes take that information and interpret it in a way that confirms our own beliefs. So basically, there are mechanisms in our mind that sort of protect our beliefs and insulate our beliefs. And we tend to want to read about, seek out information that fits what we already believe so that we can confirm our own beliefs, confirmation bias. And also when we're presented with information, we will interpret that in terms of confirming our own beliefs. And that is also confirmation bias. And this is something that has come to light and become very important recently with the explosion of social media, with the explosion of the amount of information that we have access to. So you probably have heard of the echo chamber effect, and these are effects that you'll find on Facebook, Reddit, other places where you can get information from different groups. And what they found was that people tended to navigate, or they tended to go to groups, gravitate towards groups where the people held similar beliefs. So if you go to different Facebook groups, it's all people that tend to have the exact same beliefs and will echo each other's beliefs back to themselves. If you go to different subreddits, it's populated with people that have all the same beliefs and will echo those beliefs back to themselves, hence the idea of the echo chamber. And those just naturally form. Those groups just naturally form, partly because of this confirmation bias, our tendency to seek out people and information that confirms what we already believe. And that has led to an increase, a large increase in phenomenon that are supported by confirmation bias, phenomenon such as conspiracy theories, which are supported by only taking a look at a portion of the information that is being presented. So if you believe in a flat earth, if you have conspiracy theories about the hollow earth hypothesis and the reptilian overlords that are ruling our world, all of these conspiracy theories can be spread and are spread more easily because of confirmation bias, because they require focusing only on a few details or subsets of information that confirm the idea that you already have, rather than looking at all of the information that is presented. This is especially true in racism and sexism and basically all the other isms. So rather than taking in all the information that we have about a particular race, we will tend to focus on those particular instances that confirm what we already believe, that might confirm a stereotype. So somebody with a racist stereotype of, let's go with one of the classic racist stereotypes, that black males are more violent than other races. If you have that belief, then your mind will naturally ignore every single story you see of a non-violent black male in the media, and it will gravitate towards and interpret very heavily every story you see about a violent black male in the media, hence perpetuating those racist ideas. And the same things occur with sexisms and all the other isms. And then this also has been shown in pseudoscience, so the explosion of pseudoscience, the explosion of non-traditional forms of medicine. All of these have benefited from confirmation bias, where people don't look at the clinical studies, but they look at the anecdotal information. They don't look at the evidence that disproves the pseudoscience, but they specifically focus on the little tidbits, the little subsections that confirm their already formed beliefs. And we keep seeing this in climate change denial. How many times have you heard somebody who doesn't believe in global warming, as soon as they see a snowflake, they're like, well, I thought we were supposed to have global warming. What's this snowflake that I see? So they'll ignore the average increase in temperature across the entire year just because we've had a freak snowstorm in April, and they'll deny that climate change and confirm their own beliefs. But again, interpreting information and seeking out information that fits what they believe and not weighing information that goes against what they believe. So this is a very important thing to understand and grasp for two reasons. Number one, it's a human behavior. And if we're interested in cognitive psychology, we're interested in human behavior, human cognition, and this is part of the way that we all think. So that's an important thing to remember. We're all susceptible to confirmation bias. And that brings us to point number two, because we're all trying to do our best to get to the truth about psychology, to get to the truth about how our mind works. So these confirmation biases can affect us and thereby limit our progress in psychology. If we're selectively looking at data and findings that fit our beliefs and ignoring data and findings that don't fit our beliefs, then we're limiting our ability to get to the truth. And if we're limiting our ability to get to the truth, we're limiting progress in psychology, and that's not a good thing. We want to get to the truth. We want to find out what is really out there. We might be wrong. Our beliefs might be disproven, but that's what we're trying to do in psychology. We're not trying to prove what we believe. We're trying to find out if what we believe is actually true, or more importantly, if what we disbelieve is actually true. So in a previous semester, I apologize, we weren't able to do this semester because of the face-to-face shutdown. But in a previous semester, I did a little in-class experiment with my students. And what we did was we tested their confirmation bias as it pertained to the gender pay gap. So the gender pay gap has it has multiple sources of why the gender pay gap exists. So the gender pay gap, for those of you that might not be familiar with that concept, the gender pay gap is the idea that in our society, women are paid less than men. So on average, women make less money than males do for doing the same type of work, for doing the same jobs. That's the idea about the gender pay gap. How much the gender pay gap, how much of it actually exists has varied depending upon how you measure it. But most people would agree that there is a gender pay gap. The question, though, that's a very important question to address is, where does this gender pay gap come from? What is the cause of the gender pay gap? Because most people can agree that the gender pay gap is not a good thing. We want to get rid of the gender pay gap. So how do we do that? Well, we figure out what's causing the gender pay gap. And this is where a huge debate has been raging, because there are people that believe, that have a theory that the gender pay gap is explained by the work choices that men and women make. So there's no sexism that is causing this gender pay gap. It's simply because women work in a certain way and men work in a different way. Women choose to work in a certain way and men choose to work in a different way. And the choices that women make lead them to earn less money than the choices that males make, which leads them to earn more. So that's one possibility in terms of where this gender pay gap is coming from. So that is the choices theory. We're going to call all of those theories about what is causing the gender pay gap that boil down to the different choices that men and women make. So nothing to do with sexism, just a different way that they choose to work. We're going to call that the choices explanation of the gender pay gap. There's another group of explanations, and these fall into what I will refer to as the sexism theories of the gender pay gap. So this is the idea that the difference in pay has to do with the sexist nature of the institutions, the sexist nature of our society. So here, for example, is an article, "Women ask for raises and promotions as often as men," indicating that the choice to ask for a promotion is equal, but they do receive less, indicating that the system is sexist. So there's a whole bunch of theories that posit that that is the reason why there's a gender pay gap. It's not the choices of women versus men. It's the sexism that is built into our industries and our society and our pay structures. So those are the two possible explanations. So one of them, choices, is driving the gender pay gap. The other set of explanations, sexism, is driving the gender pay gap. So what I asked my students to do in a previous class was I asked them, how much do you believe, personally, how much do you believe that the gender pay gap is due to sexism in the workforce versus the choices that women make? And there was a sliding scale where they could choose the percent out of 0 to 100 that they believed was due to sexism and how much they thought was due to the choices that women make. So they could choose it like 100%, it was all due to sexism. They could choose it 0%, all due to sexism. They could say, you know what, it's mostly sexism, like 75%. But then, yeah, sure, there's 25% that's due to, the choices that women make. So it was up to them how much they would assign to sexism being the cause of the gender pay gap versus the choices that women make being the cause of the gender pay gap. So that was the question that I had them answer. However, I had them answer that at two different times. I had them answer that before they read one of the articles that I just showed you. So just kind of backing up here real quick. So I either assigned them to read this article, Harvard Study, Gender Pay Gap Explained Entirely by Work Choices of Men and Women, which outlined the basic theories of the choice argument for gender pay gap. And then half of my students read this article, Women Ask for Raises, Promotions as Often as Men, but Receive Less, which goes over the sexism theories for the gender pay gap. So before they read those articles, I asked them to rate what is the percentage of sexism, what percentage of the gender pay gap is due to sexism. So what is your belief in terms of the percentage of the gender pay gap that is due to sexism? And I measured that before they read the articles. And then I assigned half of them to each article and measured that again, seeing if reading the article would shift their judgment, seeing if reading the article, reading this new information would shift the percentage of the pay gap that they thought was due to sexism. And notice that one of those articles, the choice article, should shift a judgment towards less sexism. And the other one, the sexism article, should shift your judgment towards more sexism because that's the evidence that they were presenting. So again, that was a question that they were asked. How much do you believe that the gender pay gap is due to sexism in the workforce versus the choices that women make? And again, what was their percent of sexism before reading the article? And then half of them read the article that was in favor of the choices theory of the gender pay gap. The other half read the article that was in favor of or in support of the sexism gender pay gap theory. And then I measured their sexism after reading the articles. And what we're looking for here is we're looking for confirmation bias. We're looking to see if students would ignore the article if it didn't conform to their beliefs, and they would prefer to accept information that did conform to their beliefs. So that's what we were looking for, and let's see what we found. So we're going to take a look at the choices article first. So this is data from the students that that judged how much they thought the pay gap was due to sexism before reading that choices article that said that pay gap is due to choices alone between men and women, and then after reading the article. So on the x-axis there, we have their initial their percent sexism before reading the article. And then on the y-axis there, we also have their percent of sexism before reading the article. And I'll explain why those two are the same in just a moment. Actually, that moment is here, so I'll explain it right now. So what we have here is we have sexism before reading the article. So on both of these axes, we have sexism before reading the article. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to plot this straight line, and that's going to be our control condition. That's going to be the straight line that's our control condition. So what we can see here is that we have a variety of opinions before any article was read. So this is a nice measure of the personal beliefs that people had before reading the article. And you can see that it goes as low as 20%. So one student believed that the gender pay gap was 20% due to sexism in our society. And you can see it goes all the way up to 100%. One student in our study, actually a few students in the study, thought that the gender pay gap was 100% due to sexism in the workplace. So that kind of shows you the degree of sexism, the personal beliefs prior to reading the choices article. Now, what we would expect if people read the choices article, we would expect, and they process that information, we would expect that either there would be no change in the line or their judgments of sexism would decrease, because the choices article presented information that goes against the sexism view, against the sexism explanation. So if you took in that information and processed it, your percentage of your belief, your percentage of how much you believe the pay gap is due to sexism should go down. On the other hand, if we have confirmation bias going on, then it should either stay exactly on that line, or you can also get reactants where people go even harder towards the opposite belief system. So what is it that we found? Was it confirmation bias where everybody stayed on the line? Was it going harder the other way? Or did our IUSB students weigh that information and adjust their beliefs because of this new information that they found? Well, it was very gratifying to say, but this is what we found. So that is their, each of those points is their sexism after reading the article. So you can compare their sexism before reading the article and their sexism after reading the article, and that's what each of those dots now represents. Importantly, though, if we fit a line to those points, you can see that on average, their judgment of the percentage of the pay gap that was due to sexism went down. So their judgment was influenced by the information that they just received, which is extremely gratifying because that goes opposite to confirmation bias. So you should be very, take comfort in the fact that even though we naturally have this confirmation bias system, these mechanisms in our mind that make us seek out and interpret information that fits our own beliefs, here at IUSB at the very least, you have learned many of the critical thinking skills. You have learned to be open-minded, and you have learned to weigh information and think critically about it so that we didn't see that confirmation bias when we analyzed the results of the choices article. So what about the sexism article? So same thing as before. We asked students before reading the sexism article, the article that provided evidence that the pay gap is due to sexism in the workforce. Before they ever read that article, we asked them, what is your belief? What is the percent of sexism, percent of the pay gap that is due to sexism? And as you can see for the results here, we again have a wide variety, actually a wider variety than in the previous sample. So there are some students that believed it was 0%. That 0% of the pay gap is due to sexism. It's all due to choices. And we had students going all the way to the other side, that 100% of the pay gap was due to sexism and none of it was due to choices. And this time, after reading the article, if they've weighed the information, if they took in that information and were willing to say, you know what, based on this new data, maybe I was wrong, I'm going to adjust my beliefs. What we would expect this time is that the percentage of the pay gap that is attributed to sexism increases. So it should go the opposite way than what we found before if there is no confirmation bias. And again, we found exactly that. So once again, we can fit a line and you can see that on average, the opinions that students have about what is the percentage of the pay gap that's due to sexism increased after they were presented with information that supported the idea that the pay gap was due to sexism. So once again, this was very gratifying as an educator, as somebody that works here at IUSB. You should be very comforted in the fact that the work that you've put in, the readings that you've done, the mental exercises that you've done have equipped you very well to get to the truth, because both of these results were the opposite of confirmation bias, and both of them went in the correct direction in terms of the effect that the article should have had on the opinions of the people that read them. So that idea that confirmation bias is that impulse to search and interpret information that confirms to one's own beliefs. We did not see that in our students here at IUSB when they were presented with the choices article. So that made them believe less in sexism as the cause of the pay gap. And we did not see confirmation bias during for the students that read the sexism article, because that made them believe more that the gender pay gap was due to sexism. So we saw no confirmation bias, or at the very least, it wasn't predominantly confirmation bias. There might still be a little bit, but the direction of the change was not was against what confirmation bias would have expected. So even though we do have that tendency to search for information and interpret information that confirm our own beliefs, even though for many of us, you might have read, or my previous students would have read that article, and their natural instincts would have been to say, this article doesn't conform to what I believe, so I'm just going to reject it. Instead of that, we have been trained to overcome that confirmation bias. So our minds now take a look at that information and say, you know what? I might not believe in this previously to reading it, but let me weigh that information for what it really is. And that is a very comforting thing and gratifying thing to know that we are producing psychologists like you that are going to get to the truth, regardless of the beliefs that you might come in there with. All right, so that was my look at confirmation bias. Now we're going to go on to judgments, and we're going to go on to decisions. So we're going to revisit the idea of normative versus descriptive. So we saw this when we were taking a look at reasoning. So we have normative reasoning versus descriptive reasoning. Normative reasoning was how humans should reason. Descriptive reasoning was how humans actually reason. Normative reasoning was what is the correct thing that we should do. Descriptive reasoning is what are the things that we actually do. Normative reasoning, that was based on philosophy, logic, mathematics, thinking, deduction, induction, rules of logic. That's what normative reasoning, where normative reasoning comes from. Descriptive reasoning just comes from what do we actually do. It's based on the behaviors that we actually produce. So I'm going to introduce the term prescriptive right now, and just tell you that prescriptive is the same as normative. So some people call it normative, some people call it prescriptive. It's the same exact thing. Normative is what we should do. Prescriptive is what we should do. It's kind of like a doctor's prescription, like when they give you a cure for your ailments and they say, here's what you should take. So prescriptive reasoning is, again, what we should do. And I introduced this term because in decision making, they tend to use the term prescriptive. So the same way that we have normative or prescriptive reasoning versus descriptive reasoning, we also have prescriptive decision making versus descriptive decision making. So we have how humans prescriptive decision making, how humans should make decisions, what is the correct decision to make, versus descriptive decision making, how humans actually make decisions, what is it that we actually decide to do. And once again, prescriptive decision making based on philosophy, logic, mathematics, artificial intelligence, computer simulations, all that kind of stuff, all those sorts of analyses. Descriptive decision making based on what we actually do. So we're going to illustrate the difference between these two right now in a decision-making challenge that I like to call the Pirate Booty Challenge. So I'm going to set this up, and then what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to pause the video. And what I want you to do is very quickly, it shouldn't take you too long to do this first one, write out in response to the Pirate Booty Challenge what you think the descriptive decision what you think the descriptive decision is. So write down what you think, what you kind of feel that you should do. So don't try to analyze it mathematically too much, but just kind of go on feeling, what do you feel is the correct decision in the Pirate Booty Challenge? Then take a few moments and try to figure out prescriptively what's the correct decision. What is it that philosophy, mathematics, logic would tell us to do is the right answer? All right, so the Pirate Booty Challenge, let's dive in, let's set this up. So there are 5 rational pirates, and just for purposes, we're going to call them Pirate A, Pirate B, Pirate C, Pirate D, and we got Pirate E. And they find themselves 100 gold coins, and they have to decide how they're going to distribute these gold coins. Now, these pirates, they have a strict order of seniority. A is superior to B. So A is the captain of the ship. She is the top dog. She is the top pirate. A is superior to B. B is superior to C. C is superior to D. And then D is superior to E. So they got a very strict hierarchy. A is on the top, B is second level, then C, then D. And all the way at the bottom, we have our 5th pirate, we have Pirate E. So in the pirate world, they have pirate rules. And the pirate world's rules of distribution are thus. The most senior pirate should propose a distribution of coins. So Pirate A gets to propose how they're going to distribute those 100 coins. She gets to come up with a decision. The pirates then, including the proposer, vote on whether to accept that distribution. So she comes up with a distribution of the 100 coins. She says, I'm going to keep this many. Pirate B, you get this many. Pirate C, you get this many. D, I'm going to give you this many. And E, you get this many. And then she says, vote. We're going to take a vote, 5 votes total, and it's going to be majority rules. So if the proposed allocation is approved by a majority or a tie vote, so remember, majority or tie, then it happens. So if 3 out of 5 people in this situation vote on the allocation, then the gold coins are handed out, and that's how many gold coins everybody has. If not, though, if you don't get a tie or a majority, then the person who proposed the allocation is thrown overboard from the pirate ship and dies. And then the next most senior pirate makes a new proposal, and you start again. So if they reject the proposal from A, then A gets thrown overboard, and then it's up to B. And B says, hey, how about this allocation? And they vote again. And if B doesn't get at least 2 out of 4 votes, she gets thrown overboard, and then it's Pirate C. And Pirate C says, hey, out of the 3 of us, how about this allocation? And it keeps going until it's approved by either a majority or a tie vote. So that's the setup. The last thing we need to know for this challenge is, how do these pirates think? So get into the mind of these pirates, because they base their decisions on 3 very strict rules. So the first rule, the first factor, is that first of all, each pirate wants to survive. That is the most important thing for each pirate. They do not want to die. So they are not going to propose an allocation that's going to get them thrown overboard. They don't want to do that. So that's their top goal. Do not die. Do not get thrown overboard. Their second goal, because they're greedy, is that each pirate wants to maximize the number of gold coins that he or she receives. So they would love to get as many gold coins as they possibly can, right? They don't want to die. That's first and foremost. But secondly, they want to get as many gold coins as they can. They're greedy, right? They would rather get more and everybody else get less. So that's the second one. Each pirate wants to maximize the number of gold coins that they receive. And then finally, each pirate would prefer to throw another pirate overboard if all other results would otherwise be equal. And what this means is that if B knew that if she threw pirate A overboard, I'll just put some numbers on this. Let's say that pirate A gave B 20 coins, and B knew that on her very next turn she would still end up with 20 coins. She will vote against that distribution to try to throw pirate A off. So as long as you get the same amount of money or more, you're going to try to throw one of the pirates off, the pirate that is proposing your allocation. So rule number one, the pirate wants to survive. Rule number two, they're greedy. They're trying to get as much gold as possible. Rule number three, they're bloodthirsty. As long as they're not going to lose money, they're going to vote an allocation down and try to throw the pirate overboard. So those are the rules. Now here's your challenge. What allocation of gold coins would allow pirate A to survive while she maximizes her take? So your challenge is to figure out, how are you going to distribute these 100 gold coins amongst these 5 pirates? How much are you going to take for yourself? So you're pirate A, put yourself in her shoes or her boots. How much are you going to take for yourself? And then how much are you going to distribute to each of the other pirates? And be very specific how much you give to B, C, D, and E, because remember they have that hierarchy, in order that you get at least 3 out of 5 votes. And the criteria here is that you must survive. So you need to get those 3 out of 5 votes. So there you have it. There's a situation. So at this point, pause the video to try to solve it. And remember, you're trying to do 2 solutions. The first solution, go by feel. Just kind of say, you know what, I kind of feel that what I would do is I would keep this many coins for myself, and I would distribute the remaining coins in this manner. So kind of do one by feel, and then try to use logic and mathematics and philosophy and just kind of analyzing the situation and see if you come up with a different solution. So basically do a descriptive solution first, kind of what do you feel would be the right answer, and then try a prescriptive solution. What do you think logically would be the correct answer? And we'll see what the differences are. So at this point, please pause the video, do that challenge, write it down. Make sure that you write it down. Otherwise, you might convince yourself that you knew the answer all along. And I guarantee you, you probably will be extremely surprised. That's my only clue. So at this point, pause the video and then come on back when you have your descriptive, what you feel you should do, and prescriptive, what you think is the correct answer for the Pirate Booty Challenge. All right, so welcome back. I hope you got your answers ready, because what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at the prescriptive answer and then see if it differs from, number 1, your prescriptive answer, and number 2, your descriptive answer. So let's take a look at the Pirate Booty answers. So one of the things about this problem here, this challenge here, is that it's very difficult to analyze if you're analyzing all 5 pirates at the beginning. So this is another example of that restructuring of a problem in order to solve it more easily. Because if you start with 5 pirates, this problem becomes very difficult to solve. But if you restructure it and you work backwards, it becomes much more straightforward. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to assume that we're at the final allocation and only Pirate D and Pirate E remain. So Pirate A put in an allocation, she got thrown overboard. Pirate B put in an allocation, she got thrown overboard. Pirate C put in an allocation, he got thrown overboard. Now it's just down to Pirate D and E. So in this case, remember that if it's a tie for the allocation, then the allocation is approved. So you only need, in this case, 1 vote, right? 1 out of 2. So because of that, Pirate D, who has seniority over Pirate E, he gets to put in a proposal. And what do you think he's going to propose if he only needs one vote? Well, he's going to propose that Pirate E gets 0 coins, and he's going to take all 100 coins. So he's going to put that proposal to the vote. Well, sure enough, Pirate E is going to say nay, but Pirate D is going to say aye, and the allocation is going to stand. And Pirate D, so it's a tie. The allocation is going to stand. And the final outcome of this situation is going to be that Pirate E gets 0 coins and Pirate D gets 100 coins. So this is an excellent situation for Pirate D. And Pirate D is going to do whatever they can to get to this situation where there's only 2 remaining. But notice this is a horrible situation for Pirate E. Pirate E gets nothing, and there's nothing he can do about it according to the pirate world's rules. Nothing he can do about it except one thing, and that is don't let it get to just 2 pirates. Don't let it get down to just D and E. So Pirate E is rational, and he knows he cannot let the vote just get down to him and Pirate D. So what he's going to do is he's going to take anything better than 0 coins on the previous round. So he will take anything that improves his situation on the previous round, anything better than 0 coins. And not only does he know this because he's rational, and D knows this because he's rational, but more importantly, Pirate C knows this since he is also rational. So now we rewind it and we go back a step to when there were 3 pirates. So in this case, there's 3 pirates, and Pirate C is going to propose the following. Pirate C is going to say, you know what, Pirate E, I'm going to give you a coin. 1 whole coin out of 100 coins. You get 1 gold coin. Pirate D, you get nothing. I'm going to give you 0. And I'm going to keep the other 99 coins. Let's put this allocation to a vote. What's going to happen? Well, Pirate E is going to say aye, because I can do that better. Aye. He's going to say aye. So Pirate E is going to say aye, because he knows if he votes this down and Pirate C gets thrown overboard, next round he's going to get 0. 1 is better than 0. So he's going to take this. He's going to say aye. Pirate D is going to say nar, because 0. He's getting 0. Anything would be better than that. Plus he gets to throw C overboard if he votes this down. So he's going to say nar. And then Pirate C is going to say aye, because he's getting 99 coins. So look what we have here. We have the final result of a majority. It's a majority approval. The allocation stands. And your final allocation is that Pirate E is going to get 1 coin, so better than he did when he went down to the 2 pirate final situation. Pirate D gets 0 coins, and Pirate C ends up with 99 coins. Now notice that now this is a horrible situation for Pirate D. So Pirate D cannot let it get down to only 3 pirates. And because Pirate D is rational, he knows that he can't let it get down to him, Pirate C, and Pirate E. He cannot let it get down to only 3 pirates. So he will take anything better than 0 coins on the previous vote. And because Pirate D is rational, he knows this. But more importantly, Pirate B also knows this because she is also rational. So we go 1 step back now to when there were 4 pirates remaining. And in this case, B is the one doing the proposing. So B decides, you know what, I only need 2 votes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Pirate E 0 coins because I don't need his vote. I'm going to give Pirate D 1 coin because if I get thrown over, Pirate D knows that he's going to get 0 coins on the next round. So if he wants 1 coin because he's greedy, and that he is, remember that's rule number 2, Pirate D is going to take this. He's going to take that 1 coin. Pirate C, I don't need him, so I'm going to give him 0 coins, and that's going to leave me with 99 coins. So this goes to a vote. Pirate E is going to say, you know what? Nar, because I'm getting 0 coins. So I can't do any worse. I'm bloodthirsty. I want to throw you over. I'm going to say nar. Pirate D is going to say aye, because he knows that if this allocation fails, he's getting 0 on the next round. 1 is better than 0. He's greedy. He's going to say aye. Pirate C is going to say nar, because once again, Pirate C is getting 0 coins. Can't do any worse. Let's try to throw B overboard. Finally, we get Pirate B who says aye, and we have a result. we have 2 out of 4. That result is a tie. So the allocation stands. And the final allocation is that Pirate E gets 0 coins. Horrible result for Pirate E. Pirate D gets 1 coin, better than he would do the next round. Pirate C gets 0 coins. Horrible result for Pirate C. And then Pirate B gets 99 coins. So this is horrible for Pirate C and Pirate E. So let's just take a look at Pirate C right now. Pirate C is rational. He knows if he lets it get down to 4 pirates, he's going to get 0 coins. So he can't let that happen. He can't let the vote get down to this situation. And on the previous round, he will take anything better than 0 coins. Anything that's better than getting absolutely nothing on this particular round. And he knows this because he's rational. But importantly, Pirate A also knows this because she is rational. So once we go back one more time and we have all 5 of the pirates remaining, Pirate A is going to propose the following. And this is the prescriptive decision. Pirate A is going to give Pirate E 1 coin. And that's better than the 0 coins that he'll get on the next round. Pirate D gets 0 coins because she doesn't need Pirate D. Pirate C gets 1 coin, which again is better than the 0 coins he'll get on the next round. And then Pirate B gets 0 coins, and Pirate A is going to keep 98 coins. So notice that Pirate E is doing better this round than they will on the next round. Pirate C is doing better this round than they will on the next round. So C and E will vote I. Let me get to that. E is going to vote I. D is going to vote nar because D is getting 0. C is going to vote I because they're going to do worse on the next round. B is going to vote nar because she's getting 0. And Pirate A, who's coming out with 98 coins, is going to say I. And notice what we have here. We got 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 in favor. So the result here is going to be a majority. The allocation is going to stand. And your final allocation, and this is the prescriptive solution to this problem, your final allocation is going to be that Pirate E gets 1 coin, Pirate D gets 0 coins, Pirate C gets 1 coin, Pirate B gets 0 coins, and Pirate A gets 98 coins. So that's the prescriptive solution. So first off, did anybody get that prescriptive solution? Did your mathematical logical prescriptive solution match up with the correct logical analysis of this situation? More importantly, though, did your descriptive solution, the one that you just kind of felt was right, did that come anywhere close to the prescriptive solution? Probably not. And as psychologists, we would start to analyze what was it that went into your decision making that led you away from that prescriptive solution, and that would shine light on how it is that we reason. So one of the things that analyses like this show is that we often reason using strategies, using heuristics, using real world experience. So we saw that previously with conditional syllogisms. We used real world context to help us answer that question. Here we also used real world heuristics and strategies to help to answer this question, because it's highly likely that most of you gave the most gold to yourself, and then the second most to Pirate B, the third most to Pirate C, fourth to Pirate D, and fifth most to Pirate E, using their hierarchy as your heuristic, your strategy for allocating the money. Because in our society, usually the bosses, the people higher on the seniority or the seniority chain, they get more money than the people who are lower in terms of seniority. And we apply that real world knowledge to help us solve this particular problem. So that's the correct allocation. The other thing I want you to check is, did you survive? So did your allocation survive and or help you survive? And the criteria for survival, the minimum criteria that you need, is that you gave Pirate E at least 1 coin and you gave Pirate C at least 1 coin. And if you did not do that, if you gave either or both Pirate C and Pirate E 0 coins, then I'm sorry, you got thrown overboard, and it went to Pirate B. All right, so that is the Pirate Booty challenge there. And we saw the prescriptive answer. You wrote down your own descriptive answer. And as the cognitive psychologists that we were, we try to come up with a theory about why those two were different. And again, this is a very challenging challenge here, this Pirate Booty challenge, in order that we can see that difference between how we reason and how we're supposed to reason, so that we can understand the mechanisms that are being used, such as going to real world knowledge to try to answer this particular mathematical question. All right, so that was one example. We're going to take a look at another example, and this one is called the dollar auction. And we're going to see that this actually applies to real world business kind of decision making. But the dollar auction itself is a hypothetical auction. It was created for the purposes of analyzing these types of decisions. So up for auction, hypothetically, let's say that you go to an auction and one of the items on the auction is $100. Just straight up $100. Now we're using this so that we know exactly the value of $100. So $100 is worth $100, right? So it's worth $100 to everybody, right? So up for auction, $100 in cash. And these are the rules of the auction. Your starting bid is $5. So they are willing to sell this $100 for $5. Now that is a great bargain. So first off, you have to embrace the situation. This is never going to happen to you in real life. So just go with the situation. Don't question it. Don't be like, well, is it counterfeit money? It can't be real. Am I going to have to pay what's the catch? There is no catch. $100 up for auction, $5 opening bid. The minimum bid increments are $5 in this example. So this is just so that we don't fall into the trap. When I do this in class, I just don't want to fall into the trap of, I'm going to bid $5 and a penny. I'm going to bid $5 and 2 pennies. We'll just say that the minimum bid increments are $5. So if there was an auctioneer, it would be like, do I hear 5, 5, 5, 5, 5 over there? Do I hear 10? Do I hear 10? Do I hear 10? Do I hear 10 over there? 15, 15, 15, oh, 15 over there. And that's the minimum bid requirement. You could jump it up, right, as much as you want. So it could be like, oh, 15, 15, 15, oh, 30, 30, I got 30 over there, 50, 50 over there. So you could go up higher than 5 at any point that you want, but the minimum increment is $5. All right, so let's take a look at how this auction would actually work. So if you win the auction at $5, you would make $95. You would come up with a profit of $95, and that's a great result. That's a rational decision, right? So if somebody says, hey, here's $100, all you got to do is give me $5, saying yes to that, as long as we understand there's no catch, saying yes to that means that you come out with $95. So in this case, the correct decision is always going to be the decision that ends up with a positive dollar amount, or at the very least, the one that gives you the most money possible. All right, so we're trying to maximize our money. We're trying to make the most money possible. We're trying to end up with as much money as we can. So buying $100 for $5, great decision, rational decision. Let's keep going with the rules of the auction. This is where it gets a little bit different than your typical auction. So the $100 is going to go to the highest bidder. And that highest bidder is going to pay the amount that they actually bid. So if they bid $50, then they win the $100, and all they got to do is pay $50 for it. That's your typical auction rules. However, what makes this auction special is the second rule. And the second rule is that the second highest bidder also must pay the highest amount that they bid. However, they do not get the money. So if somebody bid $50 and then won the $100 with a bid of $50, the person who bid $45 has to pay $45 and gets nothing. So they just straight up lose their second highest bid. So normally if we were in class, unfortunately we can't do it here, we would open up the auction and we would have this auction in class. We would start to bid, starting bid at $5. So for this, what I would like you to do is I would like you to take a moment, again, pause the video and think about this for a moment. Number one, what would you get involved in this auction? So in the real world, if this came up and it was legitimate, there was no catch, nothing whatsoever, and you could get involved in this auction, would you get involved? Would you start bidding on this $100? And then importantly, think about if you can figure out a situation where you would rationally make the correct decision to pay more than $100 for this $100. So paying more than the money is worth, how could that ever be rational? Try to figure that out, pause the video, and come back, and we're going to take a look at how that could be rational. All right, so did you figure out a reason why paying more than $100 for this $100 auction item might be the rational decision? Would you get involved in this dollar auction? Well, let's take a look at how this actually works and why this very weird situation that does happen in the real world, by the way, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment, but why this situation, why is it that you can make rational decisions at every point in this situation and yet end up with a very irrational outcome, like paying more than $100 for a stack of $100 bills, right? So who in their right mind would say, you know what, if there's $100 up for auction, I'm going to pay $200. That's going to be a great decision, right? Everybody would understand that's a horrible decision because you're going to lose $100. So why is it that that might actually be a rational decision? Let's take a look. So here we have the situation. First bidder comes in and says, $5. I'm bidding $5 for that $100. Somebody else comes in and says, $10, right over here, $10. I got $10. So if the auction ended right there, if the auctioneer was like, all right, $10, going once, going twice, sold, to the second bidder for $10, what's the results of this particular auction? So we're only going to concentrate on two bidders. And we're going to do this to keep it simple. In a real world auction, you would have tens of bidders at the very least. So we're going to only concentrate on two just so we can kind of see exactly what's going on. What's the results of this if the auction ended right here? Well, bidder number one, they're out $5 because remember, they have to pay what they bid because they're the second place bidder, but they get nothing. So if the auction was to end here, they would lose $5. The second bidder came out great. They just made $90. They had to pay $10 to get $100. So they just came out with a great situation. They made $90. So as far as they're concerned, they would love the auction to end right now. But the first bidder has a choice. So the first bidder could either do one of two things. They could either quit, in which case they lost $5, say goodbye to that $5, or they could bid $15. And if they win on their next bid of $15, they would end up making a profit of $85. So what's the rational decision right here, right now? If you quit, you lose $5. If you go up one more bid to 15, you're going to make $85. In this moment, the rational decision is to maximize your money. The rational decision is to maximize your outcome. And in that case, it's bidding the $15. So the first bidder makes that rational decision and says, you know what, I'm going to bid $15. Now, what happens if the bidding ends right now? What happens if the auctioneer is like going once, going twice, sold to the first bidder? Well, in this case, the first bidder does great. First bidder now has made $85 because they get $100 and all they have to do is pay $15 for it. That's a profit of $85. Well, look at what happened to bidder number two. They lost $10. So now it's up to bidder number two in terms of what do they want to do. And once again, they have to make a choice. They can either choose to quit right now, in which case they're going to lose $10, or they can increase their bid, in which case they'll bid $20, and now they will make a profit of $80. Once again, in the moment between those two choices, bidding $20 is the rational choice because that is a choice that leads to the greatest gain. That is a choice that leads to the greatest money. So let's go back and forth between bidder number one and bidder number two, and they're having their little bidding battle. And we're going to fast forward to the bid of $85. So now it's really getting heated. Now it's really getting to the end game. So the first bidder bids $85. Second bidder comes over the top and says, you know what, $90 right here, $90. If the auction ended right there, what's going to happen? Well, your first bidder is going to be out a whopping $85, right? They're going to lose $85. Your second bidder now is going to make $10. So they're going to pay $90 to get $100. So it's still a good outcome for the second bidder. But notice that the first bidder is losing $85. So once again, they have that choice to make. Am I going to lose $85 because I'm going to quit now? Or do I come over the top once again and I bid $95? If I quit, I lose $85. If I bid $95 and win, I'm going to make $5. In the moment, once again, bidding is the rational decision. It leads to the most the highest monetary outcome, in this case, making $5. So the first bidder says, you know what, $95, let's do it. $95, second bidder still stuck at 90. If the auction ended here, first bidder makes $5, second bidder has to pay the $90. They're out $90. And this is where it shifts into weird and wild, wacky territory. Because now the second bidder is sitting there going, oh my goodness, if I quit right now, I'm in the hole for $90. But if I bid one more time, if I'm willing to pay $100 to win $100, I'm not going to make anything, but that's better than losing $90. So once again, the rational decision here is to bid, because losing nothing is better than losing $90. So the second bidder comes over the top one more time, and the results, if the auction ended right now, is that the first bidder would be out $95 and the second bidder would be breaking even. So if the auction ended here, that would be the result. And the second bidder would have done a really weird thing. They would have paid $100 to get $100. It's not the greatest outcome. It's not the worst outcome. It's literally a break-even outcome. But it's about to get even weirder, because look at the situation that the first bidder is in. The first bidder is sitting there going, oh my goodness, if I quit now, I'm going to lose $95. That's a huge loss. But wait a second, what if I come over the top one more time and I bid $105? If I have to pay $105, but I get $100 in return, I'm only losing $5. Losing $5, way better than losing $95. So even in this lose-lose situation, the rational decision is to try to lose the least, and that is to bid the $105. So the first bidder comes over the top one more time, and if the auction ended here, the first bidder would be out $5, the second bidder would be out minus $100. And I'm sure by now you can see the pattern. The second bidder is going to say, oh my gosh, if I quit, I'm down $100. But if I come over the top again and I bid again, I'm only going to be losing $10. Losing $10 is better than losing $100, and they're going to come over and they're going to bid $110. So now each bidder looks like they're completely irrational, because they are bidding over $100 to win $100. And that is not a rational decision, to say the least. But they've both been driven there by making completely rational decisions at each stage of this auction. So if the auction ended here, the first bidder would be out $105. The second bidder would only be out $10. And as you can imagine, this can keep going on and on and on. And logically, this would go on forever, because it is always better to come over the top and bid more. That always gives you the best outcome. Incidentally, there is a little trick to coming out on top of this auction. I will leave that up to your own sort of prescriptive decision making, but just know that it involves bidding more than increments of $5. That's a clue that I'm going to give you. Let's actually see. I'm about to give the answer as well, but let's see if you can come up with that answer. So once again, pause the video and see if you can find a strategy where you could come out with a positive gain and make it irrational for anybody else to bid against you. So pause the video. Let's see if you can come up with that prescriptive strategy. All right, so did you figure it out? Did you figure out how you could end this bidding war and how you could put an end to this almost never-ending increase in the amounts that you would bid rationally in each moment? Well, the solution there is to put it so that a new bid is irrational. And the way that you do that is you bid $95 more than the last bid. So if the first bidder bid $20, and the second bidder goes $95 over the top and bids $115, the results of this will be that the first bidder, where are my results? Let's get to that. The results of this is going to be that the first bidder loses $20 and the second bidder is going to lose $15, right? Because the first bidder has to pay their $20. They don't get any money. The second bidder is going to lose $15 because they bid $115, they got $15 back. They're in the hole for $15. So what is the first bidder now? What's their decision? Well, if they quit, they're going to be out the $20 that they just bid. But notice that they come over the top, they're going to bid $120 and they're still going to lose $20. So there's no gain from any further bidding. So if you go $95 higher than the last bid, you can put an end to the bidding. And that leads us into our best strategy for this, which is to bid $95 from the start. So as soon as the auction is open, as soon as that auctioneer says, all right, the auction is open, do I hear five, anyone five, five, you put your hand up and you go $95. My opening bid, $95. And if you do that, you are going to gain $5 because anybody coming over the top of you is going to be making an irrational decision because there's nothing to gain because of your $95 increment from the starting bid. All right, so that was a dollar auction. As you can see, prescriptive and descriptive kind of behaviors there. But the prescriptive strategy of bidding $95 higher than your previous opponent. And also notice that the prescriptive strategy, the correct rational decision at each stage, led to a completely irrational overall decision. So making a rational decision at each stage of the auction led people to make higher than rational bids, bidding more than $100 for a $100 prize. And you might say to yourself, well, this is something that, this was a very contrived auction. I've never been to an auction like this. When is this ever going to be the case? And as it turns out, this often occurs in business. So scenarios like this often occur in the real world, often occur in business situations. And it occurs when somebody's gain in a situation is another person's loss. And oftentimes in business, when there are scarce resources, when there are scarce resources for investment, scarce investment opportunities, sometimes one person's gain will be another person's loss. And that sets up this dollar type auction situation, which can set up some very irrational behavior. And a great example of this comes from the world of television back in the day when there was only 3 channels. So hard as it is to believe right now, there was a time in the United States where there were only 3 broadcast networks. So you had ABC, and there's their logo from back in the 60s. You had CBS, and you had NBC, which was presenting in RCA color. Check out those peacock feathers. So those were the 3 networks. That was it. That was your only game in town. So when you turned on your TV, you were like, hey, do you want to watch ABC? No. How about CBS? No. How about NBC? No. How about ABC? No. How about CBS, right? That was it. Those are your 3 choices. So 3 choices, 3 businesses, and they were competing for viewers. So if ABC was gaining viewers, the only way they did that was taking viewers from CBS and from NBC. And if CBS was gaining viewers, the only way they did that was taking viewers away from ABC and NBC. So that's the first piece of this puzzle that we need to be clear on. 3 networks, those are your only choices, your only game in town. Second thing we have to realize is that this was a time before home video. And before home video, movies on TV were a huge event. It was the only way that you were going to see these movies that you missed in theaters unless they got re-released. So these networks were doing anything that they can to procure and secure the airing rights to these movies. And the story that we're going to take a look at comes from a movie called The Poseidon Adventure. And The Poseidon Adventure is a disaster film where a boat flips over and then it's it's up to the people there to try to survive, to try to get off the boat. And it was a huge hit. It's got a who's who of actors from that era. So we got Gene Hackman, we got Red Buttons, Roddy McDowell. You might remember him from Planet of the Apes and various Twilight Zone episodes. So Shelley Winters, and it even had Leslie Nielsen in a dramatic role as the ship's captain. I mean, Leslie Nielsen, comedy superstar, in a dramatic role. Surely you can't be serious. All right, I got to set up for this. Bear with me one time. Leslie Nielsen in a dramatic role. Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
All right, I had to. I'm sorry. All right, back to the matter at hand. Okay, so scenarios like this come up in business, the dollar auction. This happened for the Poseidon Adventure. So the Poseidon Adventure came out in 1972. Just to show you how different the movie industry was back then. Poseidon Adventure came out in 1972. By 1974, it was the 6th highest grossing movie of all time. It took 2 years. It was in theaters for 2 years to get to its 6th highest grossing movie. But importantly for our analysis, it was a huge hit. It was a massive movie hit, and the networks wanted to air this movie. The networks knew that if they could air this movie on their network, everybody in America would be watching their film. Everybody in America would be watching their channel. So ABC, CBS, and NBC, they were in an open auction for the one-night broadcast rights to the Poseidon Adventure. So what the people that owned the Poseidon Adventure rights did was, instead of having a silent auction, which is what they usually do, and the networks would send in their bids for this particular, for the rights to air this movie, what they did is they had an open auction. They brought the executives into a room, and they kind of had a typical auction where they were like, how much would you bid? Would you go over, more, less, So they were doing it in a typical auction fashion. So why is this like the dollar auction? Because only one person is going to win the Poseidon Adventure. Only one network is going to be able to show this film. Why is it that the other networks are going to be losing money because of that? Well, it has to do with the nature of the industry, the nature of the television industry. Because the gain that a network was going to have was going to be the ad revenue that they could generate during the movie. So they would be able to charge premium prices for their commercial time, because the product companies, the advertising companies, knew that everybody was going to be watching this movie. So that price for a commercial goes up. It's almost like during the Super Bowl. Those commercials are super expensive to buy airtime for. So the network that gets the Poseidon Adventure is going to be able to charge huge amounts for its commercial time. That's going to be a huge gain in terms of dollars for that network. But why is it a loss for the other networks? Well, the other networks are going to lose ad revenue because of that competition. So if you know that this movie is showing on ABC, as an advertiser, you're not going to pay CBS for their airtime, for their commercial time during the Poseidon Adventure, because nobody's going to be watching that channel. So the losing two networks were not going to be able to charge as much for their commercials, so they were going to lose revenue, while the other company gained revenue. Sound kind of familiar? We got the winner gaining, we got the second place, and in this case, third place people losing. That's like the dollar auction, where the winner gains the Poseidon Adventure, the losers lose their ad revenue. So what happened? What did this situation cause these TV executives to do? Well, this was really nicely recounted by Robert Wood in an interview he did. He was the president of CBS Television back in 1974 when this bidding war began. And this is a quote from his interview. And he said, "We were very rational at the start. We priced the movie out in terms of what it could bring in for us. Then we allowed a certain value on top of that for exploitation." So they went in rational. They went in saying, you know what, we're going to make this much money from advertising, so let's pay this much money for the movie, and that'll give us, the profit that we want. So they were very rational at the start. We priced the movie out in terms of what it could bring in for us. We then allowed a certain value on top of that for exploitation. And the fever of the thing caught us. Like a guy who had lost his mind, I kept bidding. Finally, I went to 3.2 million. And there came a moment when I said to myself, good grief, if I get it, what the heck am I going to do with it? When ABC finally topped me, my main feeling was relief. So at 3.2 million, Robert Wood the president of CBS television realized that he had overbid. He realized that he was bidding more than this movie was worth. He realized that he had done an irrational thing and basically was bidding more than $100 for a $100 prize. Hence, a nice real world application of this dollar auction idea. But luckily for him, ABC came over the top one last time. So when ABC finally topped me, my main feeling was relief, because he knows instead of losing a lot, he's now only going to lose a little. So what was the result? Well, Barry Diller, vice president for primetime programming at ABC, the one who eventually won the Poseidon Adventure, won the one night rights to air it. They ended up paying $3.3 million to air this movie. They lost $1 million on the purchase. So they ended up paying $3.3 million for a movie that was only worth $2.3 million. So again, why would you do that? It was that dollar auction. It was that idea of, I'm going to lose this if I don't bid. If I bid more, I'm going to gain some more. And again, that mechanism just kind of kicked in. The rational decisions were being made until, again, as the previous, as Robert Wood said, the fever of it caught us. That decision-making process just kept going and going and going. We have some mental set effects here as well from our previous look at problem solving. But again, the end result of all this, rational decisions were being made that eventually led to an irrational result. So you can see that that dollar auction, even though it seemed contrived, is something that does occur oftentimes in the world of business. So if you take your psychology degree and you go to that world, beware and let everybody know about this dollar auction and the possibility to make rational decisions and judgments along the way that end up in a highly irrational decision or judgment at the end. All right, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me today on cognitive psychology. Next class, we're going to finish up the semester. Wow, that came out of the blue. But we're going to finish up the semester and our look at Chapter 13, Judgments, Decisions, and Reasoning. But that's all we have for today. So thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.